Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvigram Kurume Deva Sarvakarishu Sarvada. Om Ganganapate Namaha. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha. Guru Reva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sarva Mangala Mangalle Shive Sarvartha Sadike Sharanatram Gauri Narayani Namostute Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Mahalakshmi Rupena Samstita. Namastasai 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 Namo Namaha. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Namah Shivaya. Welcome to Nitya Satsang. Today is the 24th of June 2025. I want to offer my prostrations to all the great sages and to Bhagavan residing in the heart of every single being. We're continuing to examine Ātma-Nivedanam Bhakti, which is the 9th Bhakti, and to continue further on this analysis, I would like to present the concept of radical equipoise, E-Q-U-I-P-O-S-E. You can see it on the screen right here. Radical equipoise refers to a state of mental and emotional balance that remains undisturbed by external fluctuations, whether pleasurable or painful. It is a form of inner equanimity that is not merely passive detachment, but a conscious, resilient poise, equipoise. That's how it is actually pronounced. Resilient equipoise cultivated through disciplined awareness, ethical clarity, and deep existential surrender. So we want to understand this, and this is actually one of the very important, relevant effects of evolution in bhakti. As devotion grows from inside our system, inside our antakaran, inside our life in general, radical equipoise, P-O-I-S-E, equipoise means great stability, balance, mental and emotional balance. The word radical means complete, total. That is the goal. That is what can happen. We can reach that stage where one remains extraordinarily steady. The steadiness from inside is very deep. It's a deep steadiness. So it's remaining undisturbed because bhakti has increased significantly. Remaining undisturbed due to external circumstances or anything else that might be going on. Again, there's a little bit of neurology in that also. So the prefrontal cortex maintains dominance over limbic circuits like amygdala, which typically trigger emotional reactivity. The brain function begins to change in a much better way. So the prefrontal cortex is at the front of the brain. That's the executive center responsible for regulation and reflection. So we can reflect on our life, we can reflect on what's happening, etc., and regulate the experiences we are going through. So that prefrontal cortex is more active. It is more in control. So radical equipoise arises when the prefrontal cortex maintains dominance over the limbic circuits. Limbic are the primitive brain, the more triune brain, the lizard brain, the more animal brain. That's in the deeper part of the brain. So that's where the emotional reactivity, instincts, all of that is present there. That's why prayer, japa, contemplation, different forms of bhakti, mindfulness, etc. What does it do? It allows the nervous system to self-regulate in real time. The regulation process, emotional regulation, it is much better, preventing the hijacking of attention and emotion by external triggers. Our emotions, our attention, our concentration doesn't get hijacked just by the baser instincts. Now, in Ātma-Nivedanam Bhakti, radical equipoise is not achieved by suppressing emotions, but by offering them. That's a big difference. So the emotions we have are offered towards Paramatma, towards Bhagavan. So the bhakta may feel pain, longing, joy, but does not cling to any of those states, the sukha, dukkha, etc. Instead, each is consecrated to the divine, dissolving its compulsive charge. That any experience we have, it is connected to Paramatma, and it is changed from the inside out. So as the Gita says in chapter 12, verse 14, worship me with unwavered mind, manifesting a love-based steadiness that transcends both elation and despair. Right, so the love-based steadiness is where the prema that is coming from inside, that is awakened, and that love is maintained without that love being disturbed by elation and despair. Let's talk about that for a moment. What is this connection? So this is our sadhana for today. The prema that we have, prem is this love from that is inside the emotional system. That love, that prem, in reality, it is the most pure emotion. But it is also a divine emotion. Now there's a difference between pure emotion, Shuddha Bhavana, and Divya Bhavana. We've talked about it before, but I'm mentioning it again here because elation and despair. Elation is like we get really excited, or sometimes we just feel really high on something, or things are going really well and there's elation is going on. Okay, that may be, but that is just a wave. It's there for some time. It will go away. It will come back down. Despair, depression, anxiety, fear, negative feeling, anger, that is the lower emotion. So emotion can be a high emotion can be a low emotion. See, right? So this is how it goes, like a sine wave. If you've seen in the trigonometry, you have the sine wave. It goes, up and down, up and down, up and down, like that. So in the path of Navada Bhakti, the Bhakta has, first of all of those things we've talked about already in all of the talks so far, about Nishchay, Swarup Nishtha, those things we discussed that already. That has to be there. From that, with that Shraddha, Bhav, then there is a flow of manovritti, mental vritti, towards Paramatma. It is a connecting process. That is why we have this Japamala, for example. Why do we have this Japamala? What is the point of this of these beads? It is a technology, right? It is a psycho-spiritual technology. Why do we have that? Because it is a way, by taking the holy name, Om Namah Shivaya, or Sri Krishnam Tvam Gatir Mama, whichever mantra. So many mantras. By taking the holy name, the divine name, one bead at a time, and by doing so with tremendous Shraddha, that Paramatma is in front of me, is inside of me, is within me. There's a relationship built between the Antakarana and the name, and the mantra, and the name of God. So the relationship between the Antakarana and the name brings about this equanimity, this equipoise, stability of the mind completely inside, where it doesn't fluctuate into that elation and despair. Even it will not fluctuate in that. When it stops fluctuating in elation and despair, there is extraordinarily steady mind. Now, in that steadiness, then the brain is even much more capable of contemplating on bringing inside our system the actual connection, the interconnected ideas in spirituality. They come inside. Plus, we are able to see every aspect of our life individually, personally, and bring it into a natural balance. That also happens. That has to happen. And there is the flow of love towards Bhagavan, and then one begins to remain inside that prema. Remaining inside that prema without moving outside that prema is really where that boundary is recognized between Shuddha Bhav and Divya Bhav. So if Sachin wants to reach Divya Bhav, Divya Bhakti, that boundary, where that Shuddha Bhav stops, it doesn't stop, it goes further into Divya Bhav. Now what is the difference between Shuddha and Divya? Shuddha means Sattva Gun, pure. Absolutely pure mind, steady mind, clear mind. Yes. Sattvam yad Brahma Darshanam. The Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us we need to get to Sattva Gun first. We will not be able to get to Divyata, Purna Divyata, until we are in a Sattvic state. So the Rajasic and the Tamasic aspects, those qualities, they begin to diminish substantially because they are funneling a lot of energy. They are causing the Jivatma to be trapped inside those very limited experiences. So the Antakarana that evolves into Sattva Gun, and then it evolves further into a Sattvic state through the 9 forms of devotion, it begins to experience Shuddha Bhava. That is where good qualities come inside. Much more clear understanding of life happens. We are no longer getting stuck inside that limited Rajogun. Just passions that are going on, and then just person running in that dimension only, that settles down. For most people, this does not happen. Most people don't even get anywhere 50% of this level. They just die like that. You have to see this fact. Most human beings are within Rajogun, Tamogun, and then they die. That's all that happens. For 99% of the human beings. Aur kuch nahi hota. And nothing else is going to happen also, because they have not taken a path towards Sattvic life. So until one takes that path towards Sattvic Jivan, then one will be dead with Rajogun, Tamogun and cause rebirth right away. That's exactly what will happen. So there's nothing new in that. What is new actually is to utilize time, each hour of each day, without wasting a single hour, and bring the mind into Shuddha Bhav. Bring our life into Shuddhata. Because if we don't do that, it is like the fate of all the other human beings who will just be dead one day, just with the Rajasic Bhav, and then the new body will be obtained based on that Bhav. That's all that will happen. Ante yamati sagati. Isme koi nahi baat nahi. But if we really want to see God, we want to experience God, we want to go towards the highest capacity, then the Sattvic Jivan, the Sattva Gun, when it opens up, our mind, brain, body balance, everything is where it should be. It is absolutely wonderful. The quality of each hour of life is absolutely fantastic. We are able to do lots of activities, but there is a boundary that is selected. That within this boundary, I will live my life so that the Sattva Gun can be maintained. All that wisdom comes as we continue. This is very rare. It doesn't happen in most people. Very few people in life actually ever reach even a pure Sattva Gun. Very few people. So now, once you reach that Sattva Gun, then there's even a level beyond that. And that is the Gunatit state, beyond the Sattvic state. And that is where the Bhakti towards Paramatma reaches extraordinary height. And by Krupa, by grace, because Bhagavad Tattva is beyond the Sattva Gun. So when we chant the mantras, those mantras are a doorway into that tattva beyond the sattva gun, and that begins to reveal itself. That meaning that Parabrahma Tattva, that Bhagavad Tattva, the Atma Tattva, it begins to reveal itself outside the boundary of Sattva Gun. And when that happens, that is where one begins to enter into divinity, into Param Divyata. So this Param Divyata is where there is the sacred emotion. Sacred emotion means that the emotion is, how can we say it? Sacred means that which is holy. Holy emotion, Holy. Holy emotion. It is a emotion that is no longer at the human level. It is the divine emotion. It's very difficult to describe that. But it is where the interaction with the sansar outside is immersed with Jnana and Vairagya. That emotion that is Bhakti, that extraordinary Bhakti, is infused with Jnana and Vairagya. So the vision outside, the interaction towards everybody outside, is with Karuna, is with intense compassion, because one can see that the Jivatma is trapped inside the cycle of birth and death. That's what it is. You see, so we will be able to see that each person is stuck somewhere. We can easily see where people are stuck. Because we are, at the moment we become unbound, we can directly see where people are stuck. It is not a question of finding anybody's fault. It is a matter of recognizing where the binding power of Maya is, how it exists, and then the art of remaining continuously free. We remain free day to day, hour to hour, recognizing that most human beings, except the enlightened beings, everybody is trapped inside the jail of Maya. A to Z, there's nobody who is not trapped. When we can see that, and one then evolves out of this thing, out of the sansar. So we live in the sansar is no longer going to affect the bhakta, and the journey continues towards mukti, towards Paramatma. So there's vairagya and jnana towards the people outside, people, places, situations, changes in the jagra, swapna, shushupti avastha. Yes, there is seva, there is good feeling towards all. There is also the clear vision that this is binding. What is the nature of bondage? Tremendous amount of, Gunatitananda Swami said, Jivna bandhanno par nathi. It is incredible the level of bondage that is inside the antakarana. And if it's a capital I, capital F, if there's even one person in this sansar who says, I want out of this thing, then Bhagwan Swayam uske paas aata hai. So you really want out of this prison of Maya? I'll take you out of this thing. Yeah, otherwise, freely stay within it. Billions of lifetimes are still awaiting. Cats and dogs and plants and trees and bugs and whatever else is there, in these different forms of the human body and babies and all those things we will become. If that's what we want, those are the bodies that will be taken by the Jivatma. In Vachanamrut, Loya number 2, Bhagwan Swaminarayan, he says it beautifully. He said, when you consider the cycle of reincarnation, he said, I don't want this cycle of reincarnation, then the vritti can stay continuously in Paramatma. That is one of the ways that Akhanda vritti is maintained, unbroken vritti, by recognizing the cycle of reincarnation, that I don't want this, because this body will go. And what will happen after this body goes? That this entire life we have is only for one purpose, in the bigger sense. It is to set up the internal environment to determine where the Jivatma will go next. That's why. For example, when we buy a train ticket or a plane ticket, our goal is not to stay on the plane. That is a mechanism to get to the certain destination. We must know where the destination is. So what is the destination of this body, of this Jivatma once this body ends? Because this body will end and nobody knows when. It will end any time. So in the time that is remaining, if Sachin is speaking only for Sachin, if Sachin sets the destination, Deyo Narayano Hari, when this body goes, the Jivatma goes into Narayana. If I want, otherwise it will go somewhere else. It will go where my vasanas are. I have a lot of a desire for money, for possessions, for vasanas, for this, for that, for whatever it is. I want to be something, be a politician, be a very very wealthy person, or be a governor, or be a whatever. I want something other than Paramatma. Then Bhagwan says, you want something other than me, I'll take you, go back into the sansar. Ante yamati hi sagati. It's like that. We get so much wrapped up even with family members, children, nephews, and nieces and grandchildren, and we get so wrapped up in that. Bhagwan says that because God is inside the Atma. He says, you want those things, I'll send you right over there. Forget about mukti. You'll never get mukti. You'll wind up as a small child in somebody's home. That's what will happen. Or as a dog or a cat or some bird or something like that. That's what will happen. And that is the law of karma. So we have to decide. This is what this Ātma-Nivedanam Bhakti is all about. It is a decision. It is a clear-cut decision that this Jivatma needs to reach Paramatma. If that decision is clear through Satsang, through Manan Chintan, if it's absolutely clear, there is complete love for all with zero entanglement for anybody, towards anybody. There's no entanglement. That entanglement is asakti. The love and affection and duty, everything is there. But there's no sense that anybody's mine. Mera kaun hai? Bhagwan ke do becharan. In Vedras, Swaminarayan Bhagwan ke, unke paramahanso ke liye. Bhagwan na charnarvin ma nirantar priti rakhvi. The connection with the Nirgun Tattva, the Tattva that is divine, that is Bhagwan. A connection with anybody in this sansar will pull the Jivatma right in connected with that individual. And that will cause rebirth upon rebirth. This is called Param Vairagya. So Ātma-Nivedanam Bhakti pulls the Jivatma out of the cycle of rebirth. You see? So does it mean that we are having any issues with anybody? No, on the contrary, every relationship becomes excellent. Because there's kisi ke saath kuch lena dena hai hi nahi. Kisi ke bhi saath nahi, not with anybody. We do our duties with a lot of love and affection, everybody goes their own way. That's it, end of story. There's no question of anybody's mind. Mera kaun hai? Tu hi mera hai. Bhagwan Krishna Swayam kehte, I am yours. You keep attention 100% on me. You do your duties, you do everything, the sansar will continue and nobody's going to miss us. We think we're invaluable in life. That is not true. If we are not here, the sansar will continue absolutely fine. Nobody cares also. If somebody might care only for a few days, they might remember, and then nobody remembers anybody. Who remembers anybody? Do we remember our grandparents, great-grandparents, some people who have gone? Who remembers anybody? Nobody is concerned with it. They're concerned with their own life, their own vasanas. That's all it is. So don't bother with anybody. Bother only with Paramatma. That is Ātma-Nivedanam. And serve everybody. As a matter of seva, we do our seva. But it is called Nirbandha Seva. Bandhan hai hi nahi isme. Kriya karni. Perform the activity, offer the kriya to Paramatma, because this body is only a shell. It will turn to dust at one point. Once it turns to dust, the Jivatma has to go into the Mukta state. If we want that, otherwise the rebirth is 100% guaranteed. You see, so there's no way out of that cycle. And that's what Shankaracharya ji has said in the 36 verses of the Bhajagovindam Stotram, that the entire rebirth cycle continues and continues without any end. It's an endless cycle unless we decide to put an end to it through Brahma Vidya, through the Swarup of Paramatma, through the name of Bhagavan, with love for all, with zero attachment towards anybody. Zero attachment towards this Brahmand itself. Ye Brahmand bhi ek shunya jaisa hai. It is there sometime. It is within the fabric of time. The galaxies come and they go like bubbles. These tattvas come in, they are not permanent. The Atma Tattva is permanent. The Brahma Tattva is permanent. Paramatma Tattva is permanent. So when we sit for dhyan, we sit in such a way that there is this beautiful absorption inside Paramatma. And isme se, then we can live that way. Jo jag mein rahu to aise rahu, jaise jal mein kamal ka phool rahe. So like that beautiful lotus that is blossoming inside the mud of the sansar. Like that, in the mud that is blossoming, the sansar is going to remain exactly the way it is. There is no change in that sansar. It cannot be improved. We have to improve ourselves and remove ourselves out of it. That is called mukti. ये संसार ऐसा ही रहेगा. See chapter 15 of the Gita. In the Gita chapter 15 पुरुषोत्तम योग भगवान स्वयं कहते हैं that असंग शस्त्रेण दृढ़ेन चित्वा असंगत्वा, cut this sansar out of the mind. We live inside it, but cut it out from inside. Completely cut it out. That through asangatva, कि मेरा कौन है? मेरा कोई है ही नहीं. Only Atma and Paramatma. That's it. Only those two. That is real. Nothing else. And when we then are in that state, then bhakti is akhanda bhakti hoti. Then we see the same Paramatma in everybody. In everyone. We can see what is Maya, the cycle of reincarnation, what is Vasanas, we can see what is pure love, what is Bhakti. Everything is seen at one time with that divine vision, divyam dadamite chakshuhu. This is what happens. So this is the progression further into Navada Bhakti. We'll continue on this tomorrow. Om Divalingaya Namah, Urdhvalingaya Namah, Anandalingaya Namah, Dvadash Jyotirlingaya Namo Namah, Om Trambakam Yajamahe, Sugandim Pushtivardhanam, Urvarkamiva Bandhanan Mrityar Mukshyamamritat, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Shri Sadgurubhyo Namaha, Shri Radha Krishnaya Namaha.